For those of you who don't know me, I think I know most of you guys in the room. Oh, I have to stay here? Oh, okay. Sorry. For most of you, I'm Anh Ly, and today I'm going to talk to you about MeCar, which is a car pet that makes you just smart enough to outwit the mechanic. So I'd just like to tell you a story. Well, I don't know. Do you guys remember your first car? Any of you guys? Yeah, it's we usually remember these things because they represent us more than just, getting from point A to point B. It usually represents our ticket to freedom, a lot of road trips, millions of miles traveled. This was my first car. My dad gave it to me when I was in college. It wasn't the car of my choice, but it was a car, so I appreciated it. And my dad told me, he was like, I'll give you this car as long as you take care of it. And I said, no problem. Of course, I'll take care of it. How hard could it be? But really, I had never even looked under the hood of the car. And what you see here, what I saw here, was just a pile of metal and tubes and oil, and I didn't know what was going on. So one day I had to refill the oil in my car. And so I looked around and I was like, okay, I think I'll put it there. So if you guys know anything about cars, you know that this is not the place to put it. That is the windshield wiper fluid. And ensued was a very, very messy accident that that took a long time to clean up. So really, I didn't know this is sort of basic, but I really do think that there are 194 million drivers in the U.S. alone, and most of us don't have a clue what's under the hood of our car. And if we try to figure that out, if we try to learn what's under the hood, we look at the owner's manual, this is oftentimes what you'll see, which is complex diagrams, technical jargon, a lot of things that for a car novice such as myself has a really hard time breaking into. Not to mention the fact that usually garages are normally regulated for men, and for a woman it can be very intimidating. So I'd like to introduce to you an idea called MeCar. I'm going to go through the steps of MeCar first, and then I'm going to explain a little bit why I chose to design it in this way. So you enter the app, and the first thing it asks you is this: what is my name? And that's really important. I'll explain to you in a minute. It gives you have to insert your make, model, and year. I'm going to call my car, I call my car Roxanne, because I like the name. It's a very sexy car name. And so what you have here is basically you have to create your own car avatar. Basically, an avatar that looks exactly like your car, but maybe with a little more personality. So here you can give it some eyes. You can choose purple, you can choose green. You can give it a color. I like this pinkish red color. You also have this really interesting button here called Info on the top right. And so you hit that button, and boom, this is what you see. You see oil type, oil filter, check oil. If you're a car novice like me, you might not know that you can't just put any oil in your car. You actually have to have a specific type of oil in your car, a specific type of transmission fluid, a specific type of coolant. And these things are in your car manual, but it's buried in your car manual. And even if you found it, I think it's the information is everywhere. So what MeCar does is gather all of this technical specification and puts it into one place. So after you create your car avatar, your MeCar accesses your car's data. So how does it access your car data? Well, if you're familiar with cars, there's something called the onboard diagnostics, which is what mechanics use to diagnose problems. So what you do is you plug this thing in, and it spits out a bunch of codes, such as this, PID codes. What most people don't realize, however, is that you can access this information through your phone. So, but if you access information through your phone, oftentimes there are actually some car apps that exist currently that tell you the PID codes. But a lot of times it's really complicated. Like if you get a P0171 code, it says System 2 lane. For you and me, for me anyway, and for most car novices, it's really hard to translate what that actually means, what I should do when I get that kind of code. So what this means is that you need to clean the mass air filter, or you could check for a dirty fuel filter. It's many of these things that you can actually do it yourself. So what MeCar does is translate what's complicated technical jargon and translates it into something that we can understand. So in the first person, it says, your MeCar says, oh, I've lost my spark. I think my battery's dead. Get it? Lost spark? Lost my spark. So you can choose to ignore it, or you can choose to fix it. So if you choose to fix it, then I'll ask you to point your phone at your car engine. And here's what I've been experimenting with a little bit of augmented reality And I can show you a little demo here if you just give me a second to set up. So unfortunately, the idea of this is that it's supposed to be on a mobile device. I wasn't able to get the mobile device working for this first prototype, so I decided to do a little improvising instead. So basically, what you're seeing on the screen is what I would see on a phone, on a device. So you would take it says, okay, so you follow directions. It says point your phone at your car engine and follow the steps. So, here's my car engine here, right? So I would look at my car engine. Let me get this set up for a second. Look at my car engine. Oh, and it says, okay, well, I'm going to jump my car. That's one of the lessons I want to do. So it says, get a working vehicle and bring it to the disabled vehicle. So this is my working vehicle, and you notice that if I look at this guy here, should work. Yeah. If the lighting is right. That's the thing with AR, it's tricky. Oh, there. Okay. So basically, and then you follow these steps. So, turn off both engines, connect a red clamp to the positive dead battery. If you've never jumped a car before, you'll be surprised to find out that you actually have to do these things in the right order. So basically, as you can see, there's an AR diagram, and you put the red clamp on this guy, and you go back to here. And if this is going to work, this is a little small this way. All right. So you put the red guy there, and then you put the black guy there, and then you go back to your dead vehicle, connect the other end, the black clamp, to any piece. You connect that there. So basically, and then you start the vehicle. And sure, that's sort of how you jump a car, which is very useful in a lot of situations. Oops. So back to where I was going. So I'll just keep it on. I like it. So after you go through the maintenance steps, you see that my car, Roxanne, is super happy. And she tells me, thanks so much for recharging my batteries. And so what MeCar does is implement this sort of game-like strategy to a car. So not only do you learn more about your car, you actually, this avatar makes you want to fix it because it's telling you in a personified and human voice that it needs fixing. So why is this a better design, in short? So most of you probably see faces in this car. Actually, let me take this off. It's a little echo. I can't see you guys in it. So it's really interesting, the research out there, that when people buy cars, they basically buy them based on their personality. And we already personify our cars in short. And what MeCar does is allow the car to talk to us. So if you remember the Botanicals project, this was a great project by an ITP student a few years ago. It allowed the plants to talk to you. In the same manner, this MeCar allows your car to talk to you as well. So I'd like to also remind you of the Tamagotchi digital pet in the 1990s. This was like a weird egg-shaped creature that gave the illusion to people that this thing was actually real. It acted as both a toy and actually as a learning device, so people could learn responsibility to take care of something. So in that relationship there, I'm creating a similar type of relationship with you and your MeCar. So augmented reality education, there's been a ton of this going on recently. Reports have shown that in the next few years, it's going to increase sharply, especially with Google Glasses coming out next year. And it's a really good time for MeCar because do-it-yourself preparers have just surged in the past few years. Since the financial crisis in 2008, Google search terms like auto repair searches have shot up tremendously. And in a survey of 11,000 participants by AutoMD, people who said before the financial crisis that they don't normally fix their cars, they said they were more likely to try now because of the financial crisis and because they're strapped with cash. So in short, what MeCar does is it's a way for your car to communicate with you. It helps you create an emotional connection with your car, which means that you're more likely to maintain it. And using augmented reality and a step-by-step how-to guide and a friendly interface, that's really important, that really helps overcome a lot of barriers into entering the do-it-yourself car industry. So what I like to do is I'd like to eventually get it into a mobile device using markerless augmented reality. So the way this works now is that if you see the little Honda symbol there, that acts as a fiduciary marker, something that the camera recognizes. And basically what it does is that the camera is able to calculate the distance from that marker to where everything else is. But what I would like to do is to make it so that you won't need the marker in the future. And that is possible. Basically, you'd have to create a face recognition system, but for engines and not for faces. And of course, more real-world user testing, which I hope you guys would participate in eventually. So I basically like to thank everybody that I've ever met in my whole life. But especially Kathy, especially my class. Todd, you've been super helpful, Todd. And the guys in the computer science department, with the computer vision department. And yes, my classmates. They've been really great. And Tom. Thanks. Thank you. Yes.
I just want to clarify something that I think came out in the pitch fest that didn't make it in this. You're pulling the data from the cars over Bluetooth using the diagnostic info from the cars themselves, and then is that getting looked up on the web, or how's that work?
Basically, the Bluetooth, like now there are apps where you can just plug your phone in directly into the port, and then you could read all the codes. But there are also Bluetooth devices that send the information directly to your phone. What's also really interesting now is that there are some car companies that are just automatically building all the sensory data and connecting it to the internet. So all this data about your car is being sent to the cloud. So for example, OnStar does something like this, where it can basically track how far you've gone, when's the next time you need to see a mechanic. And I think more and more cars are going in this direction, so I think we'll be able, in the future, we'll be able to access information for ourselves too. Yes, Claire.
Given how personalized a user can get, what's the advantage of markerless AR?
Well, I think there's just one barrier. I think that right now, basically the idea is that you'd have to print the marker out and put it somewhere in your engine. It has to be at the exact part in your engine. I think that's a little bit of a barrier into actually downloading and using the app. So that's why I would want to, make it markerless. Yeah, too much overhead. But the thing with the marker is that it works super well, and even in different sort of conditions, even when your car is super dusty, the camera should be able to read that. So maybe there are definitely ideas about making that into part of the app where you learn about, for instance, where your spark plug is by putting the marker first on your spark plugs and then figuring out where everything else is.
Yeah, sometimes if you make a bigger deal about those things, it actually becomes an incentive. You're not just lowering a sort of hassle factor. You're actually making the user feel like they're taking ownership of the engine or something like, this may be the first time you've opened your engine, put the sticker here and a good thing will happen.
Yeah, definitely. And I wish I realized that before I started experimenting with all this computer vision stuff, because it is very, very tricky to actually recognize things without the marker. Yes, Todd.
You could also sort of sidestep some of that by just pointing the camera at the license plate, having it look up the VIN number, and then all the information about your car, not just your car, but which parts have been changed, which are used parts, what's been replaced, should all be recorded.
Yeah, no, and actually the app doesn't work by you can easily input your make and model and year into your car and get all that information. The reason for actually the fiduciary marker is so it would know exactly where everything else is relative to where the marker is. Does that make sense? So yeah.
I thought if you just get all the data about your car, it could also tell you when it's time to maybe sell the car. You know what I mean? What is the book value? What is the current book value of your car?
Yeah, and it's a really good time for it as well because people, the average car now is over 11 years old. So people are keeping their cars for longer, and so there's more of a need to, warranties expire, so it's more of a need to fix your car yourself.
Well, what about these driverless cars?
It's the version 2 that we're going to fix. So, anything else? Thank you.